Sunday, May 15th, 1988. Today, the Australian Television Network greets you from Sydney and round 2 of the James Hardie AMSCAR Touring Car Series. Amaroo Park Raceway is one of the country's most picturesque circuits. It measures just under 2 kilometres and has a degree of difficulty matched by few other tracks. The cast for today's Annengrove ambush boasts Shell Ultra Series leader Dick Johnson, Mobil's Mountain King Peter Brock and Caltech's Cosworth chauffeur Colin Bond. Clever Dick is enjoying a purple patch of late. He's also the leader in our NEC Car Star Series from Bond, Bow and Richards. Once again, the drivers and teams have taken time out between practice to enjoy the hospitality of the Park Royal at Parramatta. During today's 3-hour feast of horsepower happenings, we'll bring you round 4 of the Australian Production Car Championship, all the open-wheeler thrills of the Coke Formula Fords and Vs, and the full-bore roar of Australia's best sports sedans. We've also got the latest from overseas to keep you entertained for the next 3 hours, and proudly presented by NEC and Goodyear Eagles for performance all the way home.
Welcome again to Motorsport coverage on the 7 Network, coming to you from Amaroo Park in Sydney for round 2 of the James Hardie Building Products AMSCAR Series. And the cars grinning up behind me at the moment for Heat 1 of round 2 here today. And the big surprise is that Dick Johnson is not on pole position. It is Dick's first appearance of the year, however, at Amaroo, and the fact that he's here has drawn an enormous crowd. Not only have we got the AMSCARs here this afternoon, but also Toledo Tools Sports Sedan Series, and that is going to be a great race. If you caught the action from Winton a couple of weeks back, you'll know what I mean. And also round 4 of the Yokohama Australian Production Car Series. But the car's revving up behind me. It's time I get out of the way. Here's Mike Raymond.
Thank you, Gary Wilkinson. And the field lined up for heat number 1 today of the AMSCAR Touring Car Series at Amaroo Park. Let's take a look at the grid. Pole position has gone to Tony Longhurst of Queensland in the Freeport Motorsport Sierra. From 2, 17, Dick Johnson of Queensland in the Shell Ultra High Sierra. From 3, car 4, Colin Bond, the Caltex Ford Sierra. From position 4, Neil Crompton in the Mobil 1 Racing BMW. From 539, Trevor Ashby in the Commodore. Out of position 6, 05, Peter Brock of 5267. From 747, Brian Callahan in a Commodore. Out of position number 8, car number 48, Wayne Park in a Commodore. From position number 9, 34, Phil Ward, the Reef Muller Ward Mercedes 190. Rounding out the top 10 this afternoon, car 20, Terry Finnegan in a Commodore V8. A hot field and plenty of hot action to come, and a big crowd in attendance. We're about 4 seconds away from the start. They're racing, and it's Dick Johnson who gets the jump immediately over Tony Longhurst. Colin Bond goes up quickly, and Neil Crompton tries to come up on the outside of the pair of them. Wayne Park also away pretty quickly, and Brian Callahan up on the inside of Crompton moves him across the circuit as Tricky Dicky takes over the lead for the first time into Dunlop Loop.
Well, Dick Johnson had no trouble getting off the line there ahead of Tony Longhurst. Somewhat of a surprise. In fact, Bond goes through now on the inside. Longhurst relegated to 3rd. This is a real surprise because he was the high flyer in qualifying. Hasn't lived up to it under race conditions so far.
Coming down to Power Plus corner on the run down to Honda. There's Brian Callahan, a little out of shape. Peter Brock. Oh, and Callahan's gone. Lights up the Goodyears and takes the wide line through there.
Trevor Ashby goes through on the inside while all that's going on. So does Peter McLeod. There's Dick Johnson, race leader, and doing it comfortably at the moment as they come around to the end of the first lap. Colin Bond in 2nd place, then Tony Longhurst. Neil Crompton in car number 7 for the Mobil dealer team. Past the start-finish line, 1 lap completed. Longhurst with a big job to do now to make up the lost ground on Dick Johnson.
9 laps completed, or 1 lap completed, 9 to go, I should say. Colin Bond up there in the 2nd. Tony Longhurst is 3rd. There's Neil Crompton through in 4th spot. Peter Brock sets 1 back behind him as they go through Dunlop Loop and now work their way down the back part of the course. And Peter McKay, it would seem that the start has determined the outcome of this race.
Sure has. Dick has made a blinder. Of course, he's had a lot of practice off the front row of the grid this year, and today's no exception. The first time, though, Mike, that Dick's been beaten for pole in 1988.
Top 6 qualifiers in this race were all under the lap record. Tony Longhurst qualifying fastest, 51.01. Lap record here held by George Fury, 52.76.
And just 6/100ths of a second between the top 3 Sierras.
They go across the line now for the completion of the 2nd lap. And back behind Tony Longhurst, Peter Brock nibbles away at Neil Crompton. There's Dick Johnson, race leader, doing it so well in the Shell Ultra High Australian Touring Car Championship Series. His first visit for the AMSCAR Series here at Amaroo Park, which of course is sponsored by James Hardie Building Products. Always brings very close and fast racing around the tight Annengrove circuit. Dick Johnson proving the master here very early this afternoon, although Bond is getting closer to him as they exit the left-hander at Honda and work their way down to the right-hander at the Lake. Longhurst back in third, and Neil Crompton finding a little pressure now from Peter Perfect.
Dick Johnson didn't quite agree with the official qualifying times for this race either. The 51.05 credited to him. He claims to have done a sub 51, a 50.9 in fact, that would have put him on pole, but the timekeepers didn't see it that way.
I think Frank Ardner or Tony Longhurst would be arguing. Their Freeport Motorsport Sierra very, very quick here in practice yesterday. There's the gap. Dick Johnson of Queensland to Sydney's Colin Bond and the Caltech CXT Sierra.
And this car's still not up and running with the promised big engine, Peter McKay.
No, the mega horsepower engine will have to wait for another day. Perhaps the team will have it for Lakeside. They're still awaiting some piston rings from the USA. And Bondi's stuck with the old cooking engine. Still does the job around here, though. He locks a left front. A little drama for the Caltex team this morning during the warm-up, when an under-bonnet engine fire, apparently created by a fuel leak, brought on the fire extinguishers and a little bit of aggro.
Yes, they've had a lot of work to do, haven't they, between the warm-up this morning and race time. But there's the gap, still holding about the same as Dick Johnson goes across the line. 3 completed, 7 remain for the opening heat here today.
Two mobile cars. Neil Crompton qualified ahead of Peter Brock, of course, and I think Brock might be out to show that that was just, well, not a fluke so much, but that he can do better under race conditions. Nose to tail now. Brock in behind in 0.5.
They've been having a good rap at this for probably 3 laps. Brock trying to get onto the bumper and force an inside passage coming out of this corner. But young Neil's on wheels has done very, very well, and he's settling in the mobile BMW.
Yes, it's a great effort considering this is only his second outing in the BMW, and of course perhaps he's, what, 6th touring car drive? His first drive August last year, so he's done a lot in a little time.
5 laps completed here. Dick Johnson continues to lead. Colin Bond, Tony Longhurst, Neil Crompton and Peter Brock.
That's the order as they head up Bitchapave Hill yet again. Keeping in mind, only 3 weeks ago here at Amaroo Park, the entire bottom part of the circuit was completely underwater. It was a natural lake, and it's given the ARDC a few problems with the racing surface. A couple of potholes, and they've had to do some makeshift repairs yesterday after practice, and again between events today.
Well, as you said, Michael, if they'd have been racing here at this moment 2 weeks ago today, where the cars are now, the water would be lapping at the windowsills.
That's right. So the amount of work that Ray Price and the crew, Ivan Stibbard, have put in to get this meeting up and running today has to be admired. And the other thing that is very noticeable is the huge turnout of paying spectators here this afternoon at Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway. Despite live coverage into Sydney, goes to show if the product's good enough, I'll come along and watch it. Dick Johnson, of course, today carries our 7 race cam unit. We'll take you for a lap round Amaroo Park Raceway as Dick now comes down to the right-hander at Power Plus corner.
Yes, this is the quickest circuit, the quickest corner on the track. Down here, probably grabs second, I'd say. Onto corner, short straight down to the stop-go corner, the late corner. This is where the Sierra really shines. It jumps out of corners very, very well, uses the torque. Dick's in second around here, up against the wall. You can hear the engine taking a rev as it breaks traction. Now onto the main straight.
3 laps to go.
And look at the power difference there as the Sierra surges past arrival and up the hill. Back to 4th and over the top and into the loop. This is a section of the track repaired overnight. Can't see it on our camera, but some of the Sports Sedan guys had a little bit of drama up there, not directly related to the patchwork, but
there's Dick Johnson coming down through Power Plus corner on the way to the left-hander at Honda, and Dickie Johnson, 43 years of age, comes from Brisbane. Winner of the Australian Touring Car Championship, 81, 82, 84. The 81 James Hardie victor, 84 last AMSCAR drive here at Amaroo Park, and the current leader in the Australian Touring Car Championship for Shell. And those stats courtesy of Nissan Know-How. There's your race leader.
Doesn't make a lot of visits to Amaroo Park, Dick Johnson, although he's been here and driven in a couple of novelty events, I guess you'd call them, in the intervening couple of years. 2 laps to go, and in no trouble at all. The Australian Touring Car Championship leader in his first appearance for the year at Amaroo. And the Ford fans have certainly turned out en masse here at Amaroo Park this afternoon for a glimpse of the reigning hero in the category here in Australia. And he hasn't let them down. Remember, this is the first of 2 heats for today's round of the AMSCAR series. 10 laps and time running out. 2 laps, less than 2 laps to go now, but a 20-lapper later on in the afternoon.
And a perfect record for the Shell team. They have not lost a race this year. And in fact, the only race that Dick has lost is the one that he didn't finish in. That was at Winston during the Shell Series Championship race.
The one he hardly got started in.
Coming around now to take the signal. Last lap board is out. There's the gap. Dick Johnson to Colin Bond in the CXT Caltex Ford Sierra heading up Bitchapave Hill yet again. They've managed to run away from the BMWs with Peter Brock getting past Neil Crompton, so he has moved up 1 spot. There's Johnson though on the back straight down to the right-hander at Power Plus corner, and I think that would make Dick feel very, very happy. He got off the starting line like a bullet, was able to outdrag Tony Longhurst and Colin Bond. Now if he can produce that in the 20-lapper this afternoon, he'll certainly have their measure early in the race, but if the car bogs down, you can expect Bond and a few of the others to pick him up very quickly indeed.
Bond getting a bit closer here at the finish. Not that it's going to do him any good. 1 corner left for Dick Johnson. He takes it, the right-hander, lines up for the checkered flag. There it is, waving in front of him. Familiar sight for Dick Johnson. And he wins the opening heat here. Colin Bond flashing across the line in 2nd place. And I think you'll find Tony Longhurst without too much difficulty. Yes, there he is. Will take 3rd spot. Peter Brock will be 4th. And Neil Crompton tucked in behind the boss, finishing in 5th place in the 10-lap heat of the James Hardie Building Products AMSCAR Series. And Dick acknowledges the big crowd on the hill as the Castrol scoreboard shows. He's the winner. Colin Bond 2nd, Tony Longhurst 3rd, then Peter Brock and Neil Crompton.
May is set aside for the IndyCar set at Hoosierland's most famous brickyard. The stock car boys of NASCAR devote the entire month to activities at the Charlotte Motor Speedway in North Carolina. Charlotte is the Ritz of racetracks in the USA. It offers the best possible amenities for spectators, and the head count, even for qualifying, usually tops the 150,000 mark.
Well, Charlotte has been the sort of the pioneer in upgrading our sport, upgrading the facility, the image, and the quality of races that they've had. I think when they come in here and repave, everybody complained about the racetrack for a year or so, so they just repaved it. Everybody said they wanted a suite, so they just built a whole bunch of new suites. The garage area is fixing to go through a major renovation. So they have a facility here that is one of the best in the world, and they keep making it better, and that puts the heat on everybody else in racing. It puts the heat on Daytona or Michigan or wherever it may be to keep up with Charlotte.
They make it a big event, and of course it's the only track that has the condos in turn 1, and you know, the giant press boxes and the Speedway Club and all the things that have added to the class.
Charlotte's biggie, the Coca-Cola World 600, traditionally shares the Memorial Day weekend with the Indy 500 Classic. Last year, the $1 million event produced some of the best racing of the year. The favourites all had their chance to lead, but in the drag to the flag, Kyle Petty held out Daddy Richard to score the biggest win of his career. Setting the scene for the World 600, NASCAR's finest last weekend visited Talladega, Alabama for the Winston 500. Richard Petty was there too in a bid to turn around his luckless run this season. So too were 125,000 fans for the second leg of the Winston Million. Darrell Waltrip and the number 17 Tide Chevrolet scorched to the front from pole position and clearly had the wood on the field in terms of sheer horsepower. Jeff Bodine kept the pressure on Darrell until the tide went out before the halfway mark. That put Bodine up front with Kenny Schrader closing quickly in the Folgers Coffee entry and Phil Parsons next in the Skoll Classic Olds. Meanwhile, back in the pack, NASCAR champ Dale Earnhardt was doing it tough. He couldn't clear the traffic and the Carby restrictor plate rule wasn't doing much for Billy Elliott in the Coors T-Bird. Only serious moment of the race involved Rick Wilson and the yellow Kodak Oldsmobile, which burst into flames on the way to pit row. Wilson rode out the fireball before popping the onboard extinguisher, only when the car reached medium well mode. The race up front between Bodine and Schrader continued. The duo were able to run away from the pack, and the pace was a cracker. Davey Allison went out at the 160 lap mark after dropping a valve in the Haviland T-Bird. Bodine stayed out in front, but Phil Parsons was closing at a rapid rate. 10 from home, Ricky Rudd blew an engine which closed up the pack. Parsons then struck by breezing past Bodine, while Bobby Allison in the Miller Buick moved to third. The Winston 500 was to be Parsons' first victory on the NASCAR trail and marked the 7th different winner in 9 races this year. Official placings in the Talladega event: victory to Parsons in the Skull Classic Oldsmobile, second to Huey Town's Bobby Allison in the Miller Buick, and third to Jeff Bodine's Levi Garrett Chevrolet.
Elected to stay out on one of the caution flags, and we knew we'd be in trouble if it went green a long time, and we were on the verge of being lapped, but I felt like we had a strong enough car. Even if we were a lap down, then we could get it back. All we had to do was get another caution flag. So I felt like, after we shook out a little bit, I felt like we had one of the 2 strongest cars here, us and Bodine. So I felt like it was just a matter of time before it was down to me and him. But that last caution threw a little kink in our armor, but we managed to stay ahead of them.
The World 600 is the next points round of the NASCAR Championship. Daytona, Charlotte, Talladega and Darlington are the bonus super speedway races. Win 2 of the 4 events and you collect a cool $1 million, which probably explains why this type of racing has a certain urgency about it.
White boy, black girl.
For the Coca-Cola bottlers, Formula Ford, round 2 of the series. Here, Andrew Gubb is the series leader, and he is the man on pole position. That's him in car number 9. Big field here. Let's check the grid as they line up for you. Andrew Gubb, as I said, is on pole position, sharing the front row of the grid with Martin Carpenter. David Roberts qualified 3rd fastest in the Van Diemen, then Richard Carter in the Maytech in 4th spot. Roger Martin qualified 5th fastest in the Van Diemen, followed by Gary Jones, then Glenn Zampatti, and Alex Yakovlevich was the 8th fastest qualifier. Andrew Harris came in 9th quickest in 53.06, and David Stevenson in 53.06, an identical time to take 10th quickest spot on the grid in a field of 24. They're the top 10.
Andrew Gubb in the 2-day FM sponsored machine. Martin Carpenter starts alongside in the Van Diemen. Should be a good race, this. Formula Fords always produce fireworks here at Amaroo Park Raceway. About 10 seconds away from the start of the Coca-Cola bottlers Formula Ford Series round 2. Off and racing and getting away very quickly indeed was Carpenter. He absolutely bolted out the outside. Andrew Gubb drops in behind him for second. David Roberts up smartly along with Richard Carter, and there's Gary Jones carrying our race cam as they go over the top and drop down into the right-hander at Dunlop Loop, closing up right behind the race leader though. Wide line from some. But Gubb has missed the kick here to Martin Carpenter, who absolutely steams out in front as they head down to Power Plus turn. There's Martin Carpenter, race leader. 15 laps the distance of today's Coca-Cola Series round at Amaroo Park, and holds probably about 3 car length break at this stage, heading down to the late corner for the first time over Andrew Gubb.
Gubb himself is under quite some pressure from David Roberts. It's the red car, number 4, followed by Richard Carter in 13. But Martin Carpenter, somebody's lit a fire under him for this meeting, obviously.
Dropping down into Dunlop Loop, second time round. It's Andrew Gubb going through, still trailing Martin Carpenter, but Roberts getting closer all the time. Head down the back straight now.
I'll tell you what, Carpenter's pushing hard up front.
Sure is.
Using all of the track and getting just a fraction untidy in spots. Get the wheels off the edge of the circuit here, especially after all the rain that they've had, and it's just worn the dirt away at the edge of the bitumen. If you get caught in that rut off the edge of the track, you can be in real trouble.
Down to the late corner. Carpenter still leading from Gubb. Roberts is the next one back behind them. And Gary Jones, as I mentioned before, carries Seven's race cam. And he's having a good season as well. 6th qualifier, just ahead of Glenn Zampatti.
Oh, can't say the same for Stephen Brook as far as having a good season is concerned. We saw him qualify 6th fastest on the grid here at the last meeting in Amaroo Park, but only 13th quickest today, well back in the pack. In his big comeback season. That's a shame. He should be a lot higher than that.
A very competitive category of racing, though, Gary.
Oh, it certainly is. It's amazing how much the profile of these cars, although the cars themselves haven't changed over the last couple of seasons, Peter McKay, the actual bodywork profile of the cars has changed considerably, hasn't it?
Well, I guess aerodynamics are the big area of development with a lot of these cars, and whilst they can't adopt the downforce and the trick stuff that the Formula One cars use, they're now getting a lot more scientific. They're getting into wind tunnels and so on, and this lead car of Martin Carpenter's is state-of-the-art. It's probably a little slipperier through the air than the older models, and I think it's reflected here today, even though Amaroo Park isn't a circuit that really shows really brings out aerodynamics.
Right, this is Gary Jones carrying Sevens race cam, and you can see that it's a little bit rough and rugged out there at the moment. The circuit, as we said a couple of times, has copped a bit of damage from that recent spell of heavy weather that we had here in Sydney, and it's left it a little bit hard to handle in spots.
They're still fascinating pictures, though, aren't they?
Oh, they're great.
Race cars are not designed to give the driver a great ride. They're usually fairly stiffly sprung. You can see there on those race cam shots Gary's head bobbing around.
So Gary Jones in the Westfield car continues carrying our race cam. At the front of the pack, though, Martin Carpenter still leading from Andrew Gubb. There's another shot heading up Bitcher Pave Hill again. Huge crowd off to the left. Our race leader is, of course, Martin Carpenter. Things are changing a bit.
Yeah, Andrew Gubb's getting decidedly closer. He's been working hard at it. David Roberts still tucked in behind in number 4, the red car. Then Richard Carter. What a long-time campaigner he's been in this category.
I think he was our original race cam carrier, wasn't he, for open wheeler race cam? Yeah.
I think that Maytag of Richards is the car that all other Formula Fords in the world were modelled on. It's a bit older than Richard, I think.
It came out of the arc. Coming down to the right-hander at the late corner, Carpenter still leads. Andrew Gubb getting closer all the time, and he's bringing David Roberts up for second. There's our next one through, Richard Carter, running in 4th spot.
Roger Martin right on his tail. They're really having a private war there.
And just sitting in behind them, Gary Jones, of course.
Here comes Martin, and he's going to get by over the top of the hill, is he? Yep, did it quite with some ease too. Now up front there's a battle developing after having his own way there for the last 6 laps.
I was going to say, a couple of races ago I can recall poor old Martin getting under a bit of pressure and he folded. And I tell you what, Andrew Gubb is going to give him heaps of pressure around here in the next couple of laps.
This is a great dice, 2 of the young lions of Formula Ford racing, and very interesting to watch this outcome.
Coming down to the late corner again.
And that's pressure, isn't it? He's not too far away at all.
No, he's going to let him know that he's there to challenge all the time. He'll have to cover his tracks when they head up Bitcher Pave. Because our last telecast from Adelaide, the Formula 4 Driver to Europe Series race was outside of telecast time after he went off air, which was a great disappointment. However, we hope we make good for that today with this Coca-Cola Formula Ford Series round. Move on to the back straight. You think he's covering his tracks well?
I think he did geometry at school. He knows the shortest way between 2 points.
He's done a bit of bushwalking in his time as well.
Yes, Martin's had a fairly eventful year, Mike. I remember that race at Winston that I think you referred to a little earlier when he spent a lot of time off the track, but has a lot of talent. And Greg Pee-wee Siddle, the man who has guided such great drivers as Nelson Piquet and Roberto Marino in their early stages of their careers. He believes that Martin has a great future and hopes to take him to England later in the year to do the Formula Ford Festival at Brands Hatch and a few other bigger races, and ultimately get him into the bigger formula on the way to Formula One.
That's great. Scrap continues for the lead in the Coca-Cola Formula Ford race today at Amaroo Park. Martin Carpenter using a bit of the inside and the outside to keep Andrew Gubb at bay. Back in 3rd, still David Roberts. That time it was Andrew Gubb a little untidy through that turn.
As the top 2 managed to get a little bit of a break on Roberts now in 3rd place, followed by Roger Martin, Richard Carter. But there really isn't a lot separating the top half dozen in this race.
Come across the start-finishing line. That gap has certainly closed between Martin Carpenter and Andrew Gubb. And Andrew Gubb, of course, we've been watching in the Today FM car, 24 years of age, from Sydney, drives a Van Diemen. 83, topped the class in the Winfield Drivers School. 84, introduction to Formula Ford. Now with the Formula Ford race hire team, first in the 88 opening Coke round here at Amaroo Park. Andrew Gubb, one of the drivers from our Nissan know-how stats. And he's got a job ahead of him if he plans to make that 2 from 2, because Martin Carpenter at this stage has covered his tracks pretty well. They've opened up quite a gap over Roberts, who's back probably 10 or 12 car lengths behind them. I can't see too much eventuating there with Roberts challenging, because these two guys are setting a solid pace.
No, Roberts himself is under a big threat, in fact, from Roger Martin and Richard Carter.
There is the dice that you refer to.
Nose to tail, 1, 2, 3. Roberts, Martin and Carter as they go up Bitchapave Hill once more. Making a big move on Roberts now. The leaders go through. Roberts manages to stall off the challenge momentarily.
Not too much rubber sitting in the racetrack after the recent rain. Even yesterday's practice hasn't coated it.
No, but the track is getting quicker. It's a funny thing here at Amaroo. They start off at the first meeting with times a little bit slow, and as the who's that, Zampatti, I think?
Yeah, car 12.
As the season unfolds, it seems that lap times here get quicker. Perhaps it's the cooler weather, we don't know, but the drivers were commenting on it yesterday after qualifying.
David Roberts, car number 4.
Didn't figure in the points in the opening round of the series here. But if he keeps a cool head this afternoon, he'll certainly finish in the minor money at least.
Chasing good season awards from Coca-Cola bottlers, who have supported this class of racing at Amaroo Park for several years. And we've seen the change at the top part of the circuit as Andrew Gubb has gone through to take over the lead. I tell you, that was quick. You only have to blink in this category. As they were dropping down into Dunlop Loop, Andrew Gubb has gone through to take over the lead from Martin Carpenter.
I had to look down and check the grid sheet again. Yes. I couldn't believe what I was seeing there for a minute.
Well, see, you're always caught. You never win, really, in this, because you go back to show some of the other guys back in the field and the lead changes, and then someone says you should show the guys at the back of the field again, and the lead changes.
It might change again here in a minute.
Could do. Martin Carpenter, I don't think his race is over as yet. They go across the line. Andrew Gubb in the Today FM car leads up Bitchapave Hill. Martin Carpenter coming again in the Van Diemen.
4 laps remaining.
That car of Andrews is a couple of years old, but obviously still does a great job. Martin's driving the latest 88 model Van Diemen.
They work their way down through Power Plus Corner to Honda. Had an incident just a little bit earlier.
Oh, that's our race cam.
Now, how did he get there? I suppose we'll have to rely on our NEC replay to show us. And we take it off race cam. Gary Jones coming out of the Lake Turner. Looks like everything's just about right as he heads up to the right-hander, but he gets it around.
And we just saw in the bottom right-hand of the screen the nose of another car. It looked like car 8, but it might be car 88.
Suspended sitting on the top of the island there, so exit Gary Jones.
We couldn't quite see the culprit there, but there was somebody that did stick our race cam car around.
It was car 88. You just didn't want to say Alex Yakovlevich.
You better believe it.
Smart Alex. Down to the left-hander again at Honda. Andrew Gubb in the Today FM, running smoothly, quite sweetly too, to the right-hander now. I thought Carpenter may have been able to come back and challenge, but young Andrew's doing a splendid job. It'll make 2 from 2 in the Coca-Cola Formula Ford Series here at Amaroo Park for the season.
Things are getting a bit willing in the battle behind this pair for third spot. 2 laps remaining.
That'll put a smile on the face of the guys from Formula Ford Race Hire, Mike Quinn and Greg Kemple. I think they've got about 7 cars now. They really want to go out and buy a win. They've done that.
Let's take a look at another NEC replay of a similar incident. Aha! There's Andrew Gubb getting the short back and sides from young Alex. He really jacked off. Put him right up on the island. Sorry, Gary. Wouldn't improve Westfield's ratings.
That didn't do much for what little suspension the car's got.
No, it's had it. You were saying earlier about Formula Ford hire with Mike Quinn. As we follow the race leader across the strike with 1 lap to go. Mike, of course, we've seen in not only the Formula Fords, but was co-driver for a number of years to Peter Williamson. And, of course, Greg Cantwell has been a well-known racer in motorcycles on the speedways back in the late 60s. As a test rider for Australia, got into the Formula Fords, and it's great to see them supporting it by having cars available for hire. I'd like to check the insurance policies out. One good lose and you could wipe off an afternoon of the season commitment, couldn't you?
Yes, and here's one of their insurance risks now heading for victory. And a great job too from Andrew Gubb. He did it the hard way, missed the jump, and came back from second spot past Martin Carpenter.
The last corner's coming up now for the Formula Ford Coca-Cola Series, and it'll be Andrew Gubb to go across the line. Good win to Andrew this afternoon. Martin Carpenter will pick up second spot. David Roberts, car number 4, next up with a whole group of cars there right behind him as they went across the line. But a very entertaining Formula Ford race at Amaroo Park this afternoon. Congratulations to young Andrew. And of course, Today FM Castrol scoreboard reveals the tale. Andrew Gubb, race winner over Martin Carpenter. David Roberts was 3rd, Richard Carter 4th, and Roger Martin was 5th. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Well, Andrew Gubb, winner of today's round of the Coca-Cola Bottlers Formula Ford Series, huffing and puffing like an old man. Anybody think you've been working hard?
It was a bit of a hard race. Really enjoyed it, though. Martin Carpenter gave me a good run. After that, we got the break, and then we were away. No problem.
He was very quick off the mark, wasn't he?
He's good off the mark, yeah. But we settled in and got going and finally got by him and then went away.
Were you kidding to him for 10 laps, or were you really working hard?
Oh, no, just kidding. Just kidding. Just keep him entertained.
That's the story now. Listen, the Formula Ford race hire seems to be working wonders. It's going great.
Yes, it's very good. The equip is fantastic. They've got really, really good equipment. Mike Quinn and their crew is fantastic preparers. Couldn't ask for better, really.
This makes you a very commanding leader in the points series for the Coca-Cola Series now. You won 2 out of 2, and in fact, Gary Jones, who finished 2nd last time out, had an unfortunate incident at the top corner there. So on the points, you're way in front.
Yeah, we're looking good for this series.
Frank Ferrander's here from Coca-Cola, in fact, to make the presentation. He's a pretty happy man as well.
Congratulations, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of Coca-Cola, I'd like to present this to you on winning the Formula Ford Series Round 2.
Fantastic, thank you.
Congratulations.
Great, very good.
Well done, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Big effort. This is the weird and wonderful array of machinery that makes up the field for round 2 of the Toledo Tools Sports Sedan Series here at Amaroo Park. And Neil Crompton, fresh from behind the wheel and his exploits in the AMSCAR race, is going to join us for this one. How you going, buddy?
Not too bad. This looks like it's going to be a ripper. Dick Ward there with the exciting Mazda RX-7. He qualified very well. In fact, let's take a look at the grid. Gary Scott with pole, 49.9. What a blistering time. Dick Ward second on the front row of the grid of 50.02. Keith Carling in the Mazda of 50.92. Derek Van Zelm, position 4, car 4, but I'll explain some more about that car in a minute. Dominic Beninka of 52.32. From 6, car 45, Barry Jamison of 52.83. From 7.33, Albert Cedars, 53.12. From 8.32, Brett Eckford, 53.34. Tony Herbert was 9th in car 28, and rounding out the top 10 is Rita Awadallah, 54.27. You didn't think I'd get it out.
I went fishing there once. Just about ready for the start.
Scotty with pole. This car was quick this morning in the preliminary sports sedan race. Now, there's a couple of cars missing, as you'll notice. Derek Van Zelm's Capri crashed this morning. Indeed, Dominic Beninka went in with him. So the lights turn to green, and Dick Ward makes a blinder of a start. Eases across in front of Scott's Jag. One of the Tiranas pulls to the infield. That was car 53, Michael Ward. So Ward the leader. Dick Ward. Then followed by Gary Scott, Keith Carling. Big gap in the field, and back to Awadallah in the Commodore.
This round, of course, towards the Toledo Tools Sports Sedan Series here at Amaroo Park Raceway for the season. Dick Ward from Western Australia comes down the back straight. That's a nifty looking little rig. And I tell you what, he's been able to pull Gary Scott on the run down to the left-hander at Honda Corner. Opens that up. Keith Carling still in contention. He'll close in the last 5 or 6 laps of this race. They're pretty close, though, down to the Lake Turner. The short run to the right-hander brings them back onto the start finishing straight here at Amaroo Park. Gary Scott going through.
Top 2 cars here didn't feature in the opening round of the series. In fact, this man, Keith Carling, is the series leader from Bob Jolly and Derek Van Zelm. Van Zelm, of course, not appearing in this race after an earlier mishap.
One of the Alphas back in the pack's dropping a fair bit of oil on the road at the moment, which will be interesting. Carling's in the process of building a new car, which he hopes to have ready shortly.
As they come out of the turn, work their way down to Honda Corner. There's Dick Ward, car number 12. Bounces off the curb, 45 years of age. He's a spring chicken. Comes from Perth. Had his first race in 1958 in an Austin 7. First in the 86-87 Malaysian Grand Prix, first in the 87 Thai Grand Prix, and first in the 87 Interstate SS Challenge.
He's not first anymore here because Gary Scott has got by him. That little bump over the ripple strip was pretty costly for Ward, because while he was concentrating on keeping the car straight and getting it back on the road, Scott got underneath him as they went into the late corner, and he's just respooling there to try and do it again.
They work their way onto the back straight. Still Gary Scott. Geez, had a checkered career, hasn't he, in just about every form of automobile. Good to see him staying on the island. Back behind him is Ward in the colour bond entry today. Comes down to the late corner, holding a good gap over Ward, but Ward's slowly but surely falling into the hands of Keith Carling in the Mazda, sponsored by Toledo Tools. Bring them back onto the start finishing straight. That's the order.
Dick's been staying with Keith during the week. He's come away from Perth and made the long haul, and he's heading off to Lakeside next weekend. We'll see these cars again up north for the next round of the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship meeting.
I reckon he's done a fantastic job on the RX-7.
They're both beautiful little cars when you have a look at them, particularly Dick's new car. He said it's not quite as quick as the car that we saw running in Western Australia last year in the dark blue colours, the older model RX-7. But reckons this car's got a bunch of potential when he gets it right.
So I reckon Bernie Eccleston would sign him up for a pro car, at least give him another one. Down to the right-hander. There's Dick Ward. But he's falling back on Gary Scott. And Scotty has been able to open that gap, tearing away from the rest of the field now. It's amazing, you know, we saw the sports sedan race at, I think at Winton was one of the best I've ever seen. And you have all the top guys on paper. They ran a sprint race this morning. Whoops. And Derek Van Zelm in the Marshall Batteries entry, he went out. Dominic Benica went out as well. So they're missing from this afternoon's final. Scott goes through. Ward and Carling, that's the order, and they have probably put a break of about, I don't know, 300, 400 metres over the next lot.
Just watching this car of Dick Ward's at the moment, it seems to be leaping and jumping in the way that drivers don't like. It maybe suggests there's something wrong with the rear of the car. If you notice on some of the slower turns particularly, it really seems to bite across the road. There was a patch put on the road there overnight, you may have discussed already in the commentary, which turned it into a rally track at the top of the hill, but a lot of the debris has been swept away now, thankfully. So not as many sports sedans bowling wides this time, but that was the reason why so many are missing in this race. Guys spearing off in the gravel all over the place.
We'll have a look at the gap now. There it is. There's the leader going through. Here's second, and that's third. Here's the fourth guy coming down the hill at the moment, so they've opened that up to about 300 or 400 metres. Driver of car number 33. He's the next place driver in the field, Albert Cedars.
Well, he's only got 4 laps left to try and make up that lost ground, and he's not going to get within a bull's roar of the top 3.
Say Albert would appreciate some sponsorship. He comes across the line.
The little rotary Mazdas provide a reasonably economic form of sports sedan racing. It's Gary Scott threading his way through some of the slower guys enormous amount of difference in performance between some of these cars.
Yes, there is a distinct difference between Division 1 and Division 2.
There'll be a new Commodore, I think, running later in the year as well, being built up at the moment by Bob Tyndall. Did very well in last year's series in the Tirana that he's had for quite a few seasons.
Will that make it before the next Group A Commodore? Been waiting fairly long for that to arrive. Going across the line. Scott's been able to handle all of that. Ward gets a little bit closer, perhaps, because of the fact that Scott was held up. As Keith Carling, problems there.
Front left.
Yep.
Doesn't look like he's come into contact with anything. May have just been a failure. So Dick Ward now with a little less pressure. And the back of the car again just looks a bit ugly. Still going pretty quick though, and if anything, he's closed the gap on Gary Scott.
That's what you probably get from an ugly, quick car. Sedans now moves to third with Keith Carling going to the pits. And they're not going to be able to pick up Gary Scott, I don't believe, coming down to the late corner this time. A couple of slower cars still to pass. Here they are. God spare me days. Good-looking EH in there amongst them as well. Now here he comes up the inside. So on their last lap, but one. There's like 2 to go. There's Gary Scott. There's Keith Carling's car. He did have a little coming together with something, Neil. Not too impressed.
He's had a bit of bad luck lately. He had a fairly rough sort of an outing at Winston, you may recall, a few weeks back.
Everybody did, didn't they, at Winston?
Yeah. Oh, the sports sedan field there were carved up. It's a shame because he's a good guy, a very good competitor, and it's a lovely little car, and I'm sure he's not too impressed about having damaged it.
Well, Gary Scott's carving them up here, coming around with 1 lap to go. Dick Ward from West Australia still within striking distance, although 1 lap round Amaroo. And there's that tail of Ward's car too, getting out of shape again as he came out of the late corner, and that cost him valuable ground. Scott's just extended his brake that much further, and he's got a good safety buffer now as he comes round on his last lap in the big Jag. Car handles this tight Amaroo circuit amazingly well.
Well, Scott, of course, driving himself back into form at the right time. He usually saves the best for Lakeside. And that's only a week away. We've seen him also in the Mitsubishi. He's got a little more horsepower to play with this afternoon at Amaroo. Down to Honda Quarter for the final time. Little right-hand kink here as they head down to the dead stop corner at the lake. And it looks like Gary Scott is going to be able to come up a winner in the Toledo Tool Sports Sedan round this afternoon. Short straight, last corner comes up. And I tell you what, the Queenslanders are really doing well here today at Amaroo Park. Gary Scott, the next one across the line, he takes the Toledo Tools car, or race I should say, in the Jag. Second spot is going to go to Dick Ward, and third to Albert Cedars in the Mazda RX-7. Let's recap
of placings on the Castrol scoreboard. Gary Scott the winner, Dick Ward in second, Albert Cedars third, Tony Herbert a very good 4th place, and in 5th, car 69, Rita Awadala.
Well, 10 laps in that thumping great Jaguar is equal to how many laps in a Group A car, did you say, Gary Scott?
It feels like about 50, Gary. It's very hot with the engine sitting right next to you, but the pain is worth it for the pleasure. It's a tremendously fast car, and it's very enjoyable to drive. It's a shame, I guess, that the action earlier in the day took a couple of the top contenders out of the race. That's right, Gary. Here, Amaroo always brings out the unforeseen, and unfortunately we lost a few in the first race. I still had to work hard to beat Dick Ward, and to that end I'd like to thank Colorbond Steel people and JRA Parts and Spick and Span who have given me the opportunity to drive this wonderful car. I guess we should also thank Wal Wallace and Toledo Tools, because they put up the money for the series, and you're the man that's taking the prize today. Thank you.
Congratulations, Gary. On behalf of Toledo Tools, I'd like to present you with your trophy.
Great, thank you all.
Good. Listen, just before you go away, we're headed, I think, for Lakeside. There's a sports sedan round there as well? Indeed, I'll be driving the Jaguar and my Mitsubishi Starion there, and we'll have a full day. It'll be a great day. Your favourite circuit? Indeed. Okay, love the place. Congratulations. Thank you, Gary Scott, winner of today's round of the Toledo Tool Sports Sedan Series here at Amaroo Park. Well, it's been a big week in motorsport, isn't it always? Here's Neil Crompton to wrap up what's been going on around the world.
It takes a lot of highly skilled technicians, appropriately starched, to wiggle the odd valve, but it's worthwhile. They've used their soldering irons wisely to find us some televised motorsport again from around the world. The fourth round of the World Sports Car Championship was held last weekend at a damp and foggy Silverstone circuit. Going into the race, the silk-cut Jag team held a 5-point advantage over the Sauber outfit, and they just held the balance of power again. Schlesser led in the early stages in the throaty bends, and once again it was a two-brand race. The Lancia team dropped out early, and the slimy track caught plenty of backmarkers out. The 1000k race was never dull. Schlesser and Brundle raced nose to tail all the way to the end before the lead Jag opened a small gap and held it all the way to the flag. The margin was just 36 seconds, and it was Jag's third win on the trot. Schlesser was second ahead of teammate Baldy. The next round is at Le Mans. Also last Sunday, the second round of the Formula 3000 Championship at Vallelunga. Swiss driver Grigor Foytek established an early lead in his Lola Cosworth T88 ahead of Mikel Trollet in the Leighton House entry, with first round winner Johnny Herbert right behind. The 73-lapper was a thriller, and on lap 39 Trollet took the lead. Then, just 9 laps later, Herbert in the new camel colours tried to pass Foytek, who gave him an elbow, and Herbert severely crunched the Reynard. Unhurt, his race was finito, but up front it was all happening. Trollet pitted with a crook tyre, Foytek got the lead back, and Bertrand Gachot moved to second with Olivier Grouillard third, and that was how they finished. Herbert and Foytek now share the points lead. The best race in a long while for Formula One fans occurred at Imola. Forget the McLarens, they took off and that was it. Senna got the jump after Prost's car fluffed on the line, and the Honda McLarens weren't seen again. But behind, what a race. Benetton designer Rory Burns said without the McLarens it would have been a pretty good race. He was certainly right. A number of hot shots entertained. Nannini was brilliant in the Ford Benetton, and he staged quite a show with the blocking king, Riccardo Patrese, in the Williams. Also getting into it, Nelson Piquet in the Honda Lotus. It still handles poorly, but well enough for a good battle with the fuel-injected cars from Williams and Benetton. Mansell made quite a charge, but the electrics on his car gave up on lap 42 whilst in third. And Berger started out well, but fell away sadly throughout the race. So, the order: Senna, Prost, Piquet, and the steady Thierry Boutsen. Get set for Formula McLaren this year.
Welcome back to Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway as we get ready for Appendix J racing, and in something of a mobile dealer team takeover, Peter Brock now joins us along with Neil Crompton, just for a bit of a giggle. And I tell you what, it's not so much of a giggle for the guys that are out there in these cars, Peter, because they still, in their own way, turn on a good show. Yeah, Greg Topfer there on the front row, number 88. I mean, he's at every racetrack I ever go to lately, but that little Mini Cooper S has got him. In fact, everything's got Greg at the moment.
He made a shocking change from first to second. He was flapping around looking for him like I was, and they've all swamped him.
Probably needs some new gear shift bushes, you know, those EHs, he got to recondition them every now and then. The Valiant's up the outside, but I don't like his position out there too much. Ooh,
oh, Greg's done real well. He's come back to second.
And the Mini's out in front. This is not on. What's going on there, little Mini Minor out in front?
Bruce Allen's the man in car 34, the Mini Cooper. 59.22 was his qualifying time, and just to show it was no fluke, he's really highballing along in front.
Has he ever? That's a huge gap. Yeah. Actually, there's a good scrap on for second here. Bruce Stewart in car 84 is getting stuck into it. He's in third at the moment and trying to make the run down the inside.
The old drum brakes would be squeezing to be oval at this stage.
Tilly in the Valiant giving him something to think about on the way through.
It should have some horsepower, that big Valiant, because back in the early days they were a pretty potent sort of car in a straight line.
Here comes Stewart,
looking too good.
Squeezes through on the inside. Up Topfer's car spreading a bit of Mobil 1 there, Brock.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of autocolor going to swap places here any second too.
Bruce Stewart's done a good job. Up car number 36 with the bonnet up, John McGill.
Not parked in the best place either.
No, that's just on the infield coming out of the stop-go corner. Topper's car still spreading a bit of oil about.
Yeah, just have a good look at that.
Isn't this incredible? On the second lap, the Mini has just absolutely disappeared. He's got probably 400 or 500 metres lead over everybody else at the moment.
Who does he think he is, Dick Johnson?
I'll tell you what, with the smoke screen that Greg Topher's laying down in his car, you won't see him again after he goes round.
No, I was just about to mention to Neil Crompton that you keep an eye on that trail at Greg's left there for our big 20 lapper coming up in a few minutes, so that he pulls over and at least doesn't wave the boss by in the oil slick. Thank you very much.
The battle for second and third here between car 54.
Gee, that's a good dice. Two different types of handling, I guess. The LEH is probably a little bit more nimble. It's probably about, I don't know, probably 100 odd kilos lighter, I suppose, than the Valiant, particularly around the front suspension.
Can't say these things handle. It's not accurate.
They negotiate corners, don't they?
It's sort of a case of I'll bowl it in here and see what comes out the other side. They do a pretty good job because they'd be really hard to drive. The brakes would be fading. The things lurch all over the place. They haven't really got super grip. Bruce Allen continues to lead. Canberra 84 in second place, Bruce Stewart. And then right behind, Brad Tilley in the Valiant.
It's actually turned into a remarkably successful formula. I mean, it was very successful back in the 60s, but having made the big comeback, it's very successful. And these guys have put a lot of effort into making the cars as competitive and as well engineered as they are. And they seem to be closing the gap there. Or is that another Mini out front there?
It's very successful for a category in which the competitors can't carry any sponsorship.
That's right. The cars have to be presented in the way that they raced back 20 odd years ago.
Yes, or the more pure forms of motorsport.
Look, Tilley tries to go for the inside, gives him a tap in the backside, then goes the outside route.
And ended up losing ground.
And does a bit of Gary rushing on the way. All sideways.
Well, we've got a very close race in our hands now because we've got the little Mini there getting attacked from behind by the EH.
One lap to go too. Well, this will be the whole race here in the final lap. Car 84, Bruce Stewart, right on the tail now of Bruce Allen in the Mini 34.
It's hard to work out what problems the Mini may be experiencing now, but he's lost a big lead.
He led by about 260 metres early in the race, and now is under threat from all sides.
Well, maybe he just miscalculated, but it's certainly given us a race. Or maybe he calculated.
Well, big finish. Last desperate lunge at the line, take the checkered flag, and he's a hero. No percentage in winning by 300 yards.
That'd be a pretty awful sight in your rear view mirror watching this Holden bear down. Oh, out wide.
He's looking good. He's hanging in there. Keep the right-hand side of the track here, mate.
He's just going to drive on the ripple strips from here on in and he'll be safe.
Do a Neil Crompton.
Meantime, Brad Tilley has caught them all napping. He's right on the bumper now, Bruce Stewart. They're not going to get the Mini, I don't think. He's going to hold out. Held the big lead early. The pack closed in, but sprinting away to the line now. He takes the checkered flag. Bruce Allen, he's got the victory.
Great race.
Second place will go to Bruce Stewart. Brad Tilley in the big blue Valiant in third spot, and I think it's anybody's guess for fourth and fifth. But, well, it was entertainment plus. Bruce Allen, hanging on to win. Bruce Stewart in second place, then Brad Tilley in the Valiant, followed by another Cooper S with Bob Asher, and Mike Dyer in fifth place on the Castrol scoreboard.
Traveling at speeds of over 200 miles per hour. It's the Indy car, a combination of the perfect pit crew, the perfect mechanic, an engine that's fine-tuned, tires that complement the chassis, an effort to achieve the perfect suspension. When everything is just right, it's up to the driver to take this sleek machine to speeds and limits it's never been before. For almost the entire month of May, crews and drivers prepare for the greatest race of all, the Indy 500. From a driver's point of view, the time trials of '87 created a month of May they'll never forget.
it was a tough month for a lot of people, and it was tough, especially because you really couldn't anticipate or predict every moment you were out there what was going to happen.
Turn after turn, drivers found themselves in a nightmare.
It was a nightmare because the things that the car did, you didn't know what was coming until it was too late.
But as to what was wrong, that was the Indy mystery.
Suddenly, the front of the car just loses grip and it heads for the wall, you know, head on.
One of those who hit the wall head on, Danny Ungaius. He would be knocked out of the Indy 500. His replacement, Al Unser Sr., would be the Indy 500 winner. A familiar sight was a sleek machine reduced to rubble, with drivers questioning their own ability.
It can be a niggling problem the whole month long. It can be very, very frustrating, as we found, when you cannot find the problem. You know, you wake up in the morning and you're kind of looking in the mirror saying, is it me?
Tom Sneva, a former Indy 500 winner, hit the wall twice last year. As we prepare for the practice runs tomorrow, this champion is still unsure as to what was wrong in 1987 at Indianapolis.
We really couldn't put our finger ever on why those two accidents happened during practice in Indianapolis, and that's very much a concern from a driver's standpoint, because a lot of times you don't want to admit why the accident happened, but in your own mind you know. Well, in my mind, I'm still not real sure exactly what the problem was at Indianapolis, and that's a tough situation from a driver's standpoint.
There were a total of 21 incidents during practice and time trials last May. When Pancho Carter went airborne on the first day of practice, it would set off one of the biggest controversies in the history of the Indy 500. There were three factors that could have caused the problem. It didn't rain during the entire month. That left the track slick from rubber and oil. Goodyear introduced new radial tires, replacing the old bias ply. And the new March chassis did not complement the tires. Goodyear claims there was a chassis aerodynamic problem. In fact, the March chassis manufacturer shoulders a part of the blame.
We've probably got caught a little bit with our trousers down, as you've read in the paper several times. I think if you look back over the last 29 races, of which we've won 26, the last time that we really got kicked in the butt and kicked hard was Pocono last year. That was the first time the radials had really been used in a 500-mile race, and we were well and truly beaten by Mario. And I think that should have been an indication then that we were in a slight, as we say in English, spot of bother.
We couldn't blame it on anything. We couldn't blame it on marks or anything. I think it's just we didn't have the right combination.
The drivers have had a full year to analyze and forget the nightmare of May '87. It's May of '88, and a championship driver has but one goal.
You know, they're just like many golf tournaments out there, but the Masters is the one, and Indianapolis is our Masters, is our Super Bowl, and we just got to go for it.
The Indy 500 coming up in a few weeks' time, the classic oval track event for the Hoosier Brickyard. In the meantime, we're going to have, of course, production cars for the next round of the Yokohama Australian Championship to come. That's after this break. And welcome back to Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway. We have the field lining up now for round 4 of the Yokohama Australian Production Car Championship. 20 laps the distance this afternoon at Amaroo Park Raceway, one of the tightest layouts on the National Trail. Let's take a look how they'll line up for this afternoon's round of the Australian Championship. Gary Walden has pole position in the Mazda RX-7, sharing the front row. Peter Fitzgerald in another RX-7 from 3, car 4, Jim Zarafos, a Commodore. From 4, car 50, Mark Gibbs in the Bridgestone Commodore. From 5, 11, Michael Preston, another Commodore. From 6, 25, Roland Hills Commodore. From position 7, car 16, Alan Fender. From 8, car 2, Bradley Jones. From 9, 77, John Burke. And rounding out the 10, Peter Dane in the Yokohama Commodore. Top field, 25 drivers this afternoon to contest round 4 of the Yokohama Australian Championship from Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway. Gary Walden, pole position. Timed in yesterday with a 58.56. Sharing the front row, Peter Fitzgerald. Yesterday's time, 58.98.
Gary Walden won the previous round of the championship, but as far as the overall point score is concerned, Mark Gibbs is the leader, and it's pretty tight at the head of affairs too. This is the 4th round of the series. Gibbs, the series leader, on 30 points from Mike Preston on 27, Peter Fitzgerald on 27, then Gary Walden on 20.
Shouldn't be too long before we have a start. Race Cam, of course, will be bringing you pictures in this event from one of the Commodores, Mark Gibbs' car. But the fight up front should be really something to watch. Walden versus Fitzgerald. Ready for a start? Racing, round 4 of the Yokohama Australian Production Car Championship. This time it's Gary Walden gets away. Look at what's going on behind, though, as one forces Alan Fender coming up here in company with Preston. They've picked up Roland Hill, and there's a little bit of door banging going on as they reach the top of Skyline for the first time.
Mike Preston really had to work pretty hard then to keep Fender's mobile out. Gibbs on the outside here of Peter Fitzgerald, getting a little sideways, but quickly sneaks back across the road to try and take some of the tar away from Jim Zarafos.
It's a good break for Gary Walden, got off the line beautifully. Some of them doing some zigging and some zagging as they come down to Power Plus corner. This time we pick them up at Honda. Gary Walden running for Goodyear, out in front from Peter Fitzgerald. Mark Gibbs is the next one to come through. Mike Preston still trying to fight his way through the pack in company with Roland Hill and Alan Fender.
The Mazdas have been exceptional in the last couple of rounds of this championship, particularly Gary Walden's. Incredible times from them. Qualified yesterday in a 58.56. Oh, and Brad Jones has been tangled up there with the 2nd Goodyear Commodore. Not the first time they've tangoed this year.
Looks like Brad trying to get the Valvoline machine out of the way, which he does. But I'll tell you what, that's not the best part to park at Amaroo Park. Make no mistake about it. It's right on the line. Let's have a look at the recap. NEC replay. Oh, he just didn't turn. Came back and nailed Brad Jones. They're at 6s and 7s behind, though.
How everybody else got out of that with, well, relatively little damage is remarkable. One of the lasers went in.
Tell you what, it won't be too bad for the race leaders as they come around here, but the pack behind the leaders are going to have to watch themselves.
How?
I've got a feeling that may have all started a bit earlier than that, somehow. John Burke got around, he jumped into the grass and got through there cleanly.
Certainly plenty of traffic congestion. There's Brad Jones, Valvoline Starion facing the oncoming traffic.
Going back to the Oran Park production car race, or it would have been a couple of months ago, I know that Stott and Bradley tangled and there were a few words exchanged. And I had the misfortune of following Mr. Stott on practice on Friday, who doesn't seem to watch his mirrors very often.
Gary Walden. Well, there's Stott's car. He's decided after sitting it out there for one lap, it's not the place to park. So he steps over the wall. The car sits there. The drivers will pass that point of the racetrack under flags, hopefully to lessen the chance of contact with the back of the car as they come through this turn. As you can see, there's Fitzgerald going through. Mark Gibbs is the next one through. Michael Preston going through, so too Roland Hill and Alan Fender.
What, half a car's width wide there, and you'll end up in his boot.
So Gary Walden, the Goodyear Eagle-sponsored Mazda, heads through Dunlop Loop and now onto the back straight. Got a good lead build up using all of the racetrack too.
Gary Walden, 35 years of age in the Mazda, and it's going so much better now. Second in this series 3 times, so this year is very important to him. He was the winner of the production car race at Bathurst. Done very well in the last couple of national title races with 2 first placings and first in this year's series today. Gary Walden, he'll be much, much happy with the performance of his car now with the Barry Jones 13B peripheral port turbo Mazda engine on board. Barry's done a great job to get this car really functioning. We've mentioned a couple of times earlier this year that Pete was always the enemy of the Mazda. Mark Gibbs really using plenty of road that time. And now the results are coming Gary's way after well, a pretty tough season.
As Peter Fitzgerald runs second in the Yokohama sponsored car, also happens to be the sponsor of the series. Fairly important for Pete. He gets up and does the right thing. They've opened up a bit of a gap over Mark Gibbs in the Commodore. There's Mark coming through, then a gaggle of Commodores back behind him. Fitzy in the Mazda.
Mark Gibbs, the best of the Holden Brigade, and there's plenty of them out there today. He's got a fairly good lead now over Jim Zarafos, and Zarafos heads off a battle that includes Mike Preston and Roland Hill. There's the gap. You'll see him doing battle.
Yeah, I think this is where the interest is in the race at the moment.
Michael got very close to the back of Zarafos when they went through the stop corner that time, and they've all just stretched out a little bit heading up the straight, and tagging along in the Advans entry is Roland Hill. I've seen him doing very well in production car racing in the last couple of seasons. Jim Zarafos, you'll recall, probably 2 or 3 seasons ago now, was running a laser very successfully here and had a season away from production car racing, and has now come back this year in a full challenge in the Goodyear Turbo Commodore. Carried our race cam last time. The Commodore boys are really wondering at the moment what they're going to do about the performance of the 2 leading Mazdas.
Yeah, it's become apparent, hasn't it, the last couple of races, that the Mazdas are getting the wood on them, race by race. Here's some of the picks as we take race cam from Gibbs' car. This is coming up to where Stott's car is still parked in the fence, so you'll notice drives it in here, floats the tail out, so there's not too much there. There's not much I can do about it either, he tells the crew.
That's right. I'm doing everything I can. Gee, didn't he look very relaxed behind the wheel? It was all happening gracefully for Mark Gibbs.
He's quite a talent. His young Mark, aged 30, has his own spare parts business here in Sydney. He started, I guess, about 1984 in production cars. He had a V8 Commodore, and he's done things like, I think he was the 84 Bathurst Rookie of the Year. He went on and cleaned up in the Laser Series. I think he was second in that. Won the 86 Stallion Stables Series in a V8 Commodore, and now he's doing a great job in his Turbo Commodore.
There's a case of the lurches under brakes. There's the Mazdas running away, Walden, and then Fitzgerald. There's Mark going through.
I don't know whether you noticed, Pete, how smooth he was on race cam. Very, very gentle on the car.
Yes, I think that's partly the tuition of Ron Gillard, who has really hammered that home to Mark Gibbs and to the other driver in his charge, Michael Preston. The idea in production car racing is to keep the cars moving very smoothly, not screw up the rubber, as Peter Dane illustrated. Peter's usually a very smooth driver too. I think he's under a bit of pressure from Jim Zarafos there.
Well, Jim's dropped back a couple of slots in all that, and just behind him I had a glimpse of John Burke in the Toyo Supra, who's really finding life pretty difficult at the moment against the Turbo Holdens and the Turbo Mazdas after running so well here last season.
Yes, production car racing is certainly turbocharged country this season.
Isn't everything? Mike Preston has really only got to deal now with Roland Hill. Seems to have got rid of Zarafos. There's John Burke, Brian Hilton Toyota, fuel-injected Toyota. Sort of in amongst a whole bunch of Turbo Commodores at the moment.
A beautiful, beautifully handling motor car is the Toyota Supra. And when it gets some horsepower via a turbocharger later in the year, I think it'll be right back in there.
The other thing you have to say about John's cars is they always look fantastic. I don't think there'd be too many production cars out there that are as well presented as this car.
No, full marks to Brian Hilton Toyota up there on the Central Coast. Brian's a great rally man from way back, and obviously quite prepared to put a few dollars into production car racing.
Phillips getting right in behind at the moment in car number 55. I wonder what happened to Jim Zarafos, because he seemed to, he's dropped the best part of 200 metres off the cars that he was involved in, and now he's being rounded up by Berg. Well, his hand's out the window, so he must have a problem. Phillips goes through. Well, that's disappointing for him. So Gibbs still in third, chasing the 2 Mazdas. Then Michael Preston, Roland Hill, Alan Fender, Peter Dane, and then this car, John Berg.
Phillips getting a little closer now as they come up Bitcher Pave. Not much in them as they waltz over the top. The Skyline, drop down into Dunlop Loop.
Always looks worse from here, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Looked like an attack of the curves coming up, and he's bounced over one there and wound up on the outside. Lost a bit of ground in that manoeuvre. So Burke is able to keep him in check. Meanwhile, our leader is, of course, Gary Walden, the Goodyear Eagles Mazda. Coming across the start-finishing line, Jimmy Zarafos in the pits, ready to step out of the car. Hasn't really been the race for Jim today after doing so well last time out here. They've covered half distance, 20 laps the distance for round 4, the Yokohama Australian Production Car Championship.
We haven't seen too many failures from the Commodores all year. In fact, last year, there rarely see any turbo Commodores off the side of the track. Be interesting to see what happened there. This is a very handy lead that Walden's built up. Seems to have just had the edge all weekend on Peter Fitzgerald. Fought pretty hard in the earlier race today. If anything, it would seem as though Peter's car is just sliding around a little bit more than Gary's car.
Peter, of course, the defending national champion. Last year, it was just one race for the championship. This year, a series across 5 states. And this category of racing really booming.
So I don't know what the Mazda drivers can come up with to... there wasn't much in that from Mark Gibbs, let me tell you. To keep running away from the Commodores, but they've done that in the last couple of rounds.
No, I was talking with Ron Gillard earlier today, and he said that here, as is the case at most circuits, all you can do is hope that they run into problems. Of course, reliability with the Mazdas is now not a problem as we go back to Mark.
Interesting stuff, this. I said the guy just seems very easy on the car and happy with the way that it works. Strokes it along nicely, nothing violent happening.
Of course, the tyres have done 10 or 11 laps now. The tyres wouldn't be at their best. But Mark's doing a great job taking care of the tyres because they're, as we've commented so much earlier, they're only street tyres, buffed back to a couple of millimetres to keep the heat out of the tread. With a full tread, tyres squirm around and generate a lot of heat, and production car drivers overcome that by scraping the tread surface off.
I notice he sort of, and I guess it's a trait of these types of cars, Pete, he turns in and then catches a fairly long, lazy lurch from the car with almost neutral amount of steering on. It was interesting watching him go through the very fast corner at Power Plus last time. You'll see it again. Makes the run down towards there now. It builds up quite a lot of speed down here.
Yeah, this is the fastest corner on the track, yet he does it all very lazy, all very controlled.
See, look, he turns it, now has to sort of correct the whole way around, brings it, you know, it's just an initial throw, and then he fights it the rest of the way. It's interesting. In fact, he's going to be a busy lad very shortly because Michael Preston's closing the gap, and so is Roland Hill. So he might just be fighting slightly slippery tyres at the moment.
What we would like to see is the gap closed between the first and second place Masters. The natural rivalry between Peter Fitzgerald and Gary Walden really compounded this morning during that heat race when there was a little get-together coming onto the main straight, and then words were spoken, and the stewards demanded to see 2 drivers front centre. But no charges laid, but obviously a little bit of feeling, and I got the word that officials will be watching their little dice very closely today. So far, though, no fireworks.
Well, that was helped, of course, by the fact that Walden got off the line in the 20-lap championship race. This morning he didn't. He had to fight Peter Fitzgerald all the way. Peter at one stage had the widest Mazda in town.
This is becoming a real battle.
Yep, this is shaping up to be probably the interest in the second half of the race is Mark Gibbs.
Ooh, gee whiz. Feeler gauge stuff from the side of Michael Preston's car. In fact, I think he's made contact by the look of it.
Rolling Hill doesn't want to be left out.
He's going for the draft as well.
And now Mark's starting to concentrate pretty hard on that rear vision mirror. It's the shocking feeling having somebody right there.
So Mark Gibbs trying to defend here. Third place against Preston.
See how smooth Mark can remain under pressure.
Yes, he can be quite fiery at times.
This is helping Roland Hill quite a lot. So now the difficult part for the fella being chased is that he's got to tighten up all his lines a little bit and probably drive a bit more on the defence, which you see him do there. He moves across to more like the middle of the road rather than the wider line into the corner to keep his speed up. And all that does is enable the other guy to get closer.
Roland Hill won out of that encounter. He got it up on 2 wheels and cut the infield as well, so he's on the outside here, but doing it hard against Preston.
I wouldn't go through the next turn side by side. There's a car on the exit. Thank you.
Well, they both get past the chicane there, heading up Bitcher Pave.
Could be the fastest bit of parallel parking of all time.
Once again, they're dropping down into Dunlop Loop. Mark Gibbs holding off Mike Preston and Rolly Hill. And they're coming up on a slower car.
The meat in the sandwich, Mike Preston, he hasn't been in motor racing very long. Began in 1985 in those Wild and Woolly Geminis in Queensland. Won the series in 86 and then came on to production car racing, and he's really making a good fist of it. Been right in every one of the championship races so far this season.
That was quite a lively smokescreen, Jim.
I was going to say they should thank all the tyre manufacturers for aiding putting some rubber back into the circuit. Okay, they've gathered up the back marker.
Lap 15 of 20. Oh, Roland Hill. It's very sideways.
You see, Preston was sitting on the back bumper 2 laps ago of Mark Gibbs. He's not there at the moment, though. Mark's got his second lease on life, heading up the hill. Dropping down into Dunlop Loop again. Brake lock up there from Gibbs. But look at this stage. It was all overrunning going into the turn, then had to wipe off a bit of speed on the way out. So Mike Preston lunges again at Mark Gibbs. And Roland Hill seems like he's on the freight train with the freight cars out of control.
It's one thing for Mike to catch Mark. It's another thing to get by. And he's just put an extra couple of feet in that margin again. Meanwhile, the leaders are sort of shooting over the top of the hill, so they're generating what's rapidly becoming a half-lap lead.
Pretty exuberant use of the tyres. Of course, in previous meetings, there has been a 4-tyre rule involved in production car racing. All the drivers were required to use the same 4 tyres through qualifying and into the race itself. That rule, after much opposition from the drivers, was scrapped at Adelaide the last round, and now there's a freedom of tyres, and full marks to Cams for seeing sense on that. At Adelaide, I think you recall, tyre wear was so dramatic they wouldn't have got anywhere near through qualifying in a race on 4 tyres.
No, we mentioned down there that just the circuit is so fast and there are so many parts of the circuit where you're leaning very hard on the car, and it just seems to chew the rubber up on almost all types of motor vehicles. And that was shown out in the touring car race particularly. This is a great scrap, these 3 fellas. The absolutely flat stick, nothing in it. They all make little gains in a couple of different places around the track, but the net result is nose-to-tail racing.
The fight hasn't gone out of Preston, though, I'm sure about that. Every time he thinks he's just on the bumper there, Roland Hill arrives underneath him. Just keeps his mind back on the job. Could Roland get any closer?
No, but if he's going to make a move, he better make it soon. It's not this race is
we're nearly
running to a conclusion.
It's almost payday.
Payday being $7,800. Not a bad little earn for these boys.
Very healthy, and Yokohama have done a great job to inject some prize money into the series. And there's Gary Walden, race leader, just winding up past Drew Price, car 78, in the little Peugeot 205.
On their last lap. great to see Gary Walden finally enjoying a degree of a success in production car racing, particularly with this car. They had heating problems with it early part of the season. They were able to cure that.
And Gary now very keen to secure a touring car drive in the endurance races later in the year, as is just about every driver out there.
Yeah. Out of Honda Quarter down to the lake for the final time. Meanwhile, the thrills continue back in the pack for third. Roland Hill, Michael Preston, and of course Mark Gibbs. Last corner coming up though for Gary Walden, giving the call out. Goodyear Eagles going to take him home to victory. And Gary Walden wins round 4 of the Yokohama Australian Production Car Championship today at Amaroo Park Raceway. Second spot, of course, will go to Peter Fitzgerald, looking for the scrap now for third, as coming along the short straight to the last right-hander, Mark Gibbs, able to fend off Michael Preston and Roland Hill, and that's the way, in fact, they will finish. Over 20 laps here this afternoon. A great win to Gary Walden, very popular driver, and I don't think anyone is going to put the wood on Walden here at Amaroo Park in the supporting production car series as well for the rest of the season. He seems to have it all together. Acknowledging the flag marshals. So Gary Walden doing it for Goodyear, and he's come up a winner this afternoon at Sydney's Amaroo Park. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
Back at Amaroo Park following the 4th round of the Yokohama Production Car Series. And Gary Walden, congratulations again. Not only a win today, but now the leader at the halfway mark in the series. 4 big rounds to go, though.
Yeah, I'm very pleased.
I'll bet you are, but hard work.
Very hard. I'm very sweaty. Very sweaty.
The Commodore guys, and I know Mark Gibbs is standing behind you, nodding in agreement, have got to find something else if they're going to make a fight of it for the rest of the series, because Peter and yourself, the Masters, are going so well. The Masters are the car to have, Gary. I think Peter, with a few more months' development, will be very close to myself. But the Commodores, I think, are outdated. I guess everybody was a bit lucky to escape that car that was parked up against the wall in the main straight, because it was a pretty nasty incident. It sure was. I didn't really know what happened, but I think it must have been the second lap or so. Third lap, I think. Third lap, was it? Yeah. I'll probably slowed lap times down a couple of tenths, but everyone had to do it, so it didn't matter much. Well, it certainly slowed Chris Stott down. He just spent the rest of the race on the other side of the wall, but as you said, it left a lot of debris on the track as well. Actually, I was worried about a puncture, but as it turned out, I think it was okay. Adrian Nash is here from Yokohama to do the honours. Thank you, Adrian.
Congratulations on a flawless win this afternoon. You made it look so easy. Thank you. On behalf of Yokohama Performance Tyres, we'd like you to accept this trophy as a in recognition of your efforts this afternoon. Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank Yokohama again very much. They've supported Group E racing now for quite a few years, and I'm very pleased to be associated with the series. But thank you, Goodyear Eagles, for bringing me all the way home. Congratulations to Gary Walden, winner again, also to Peter Fitzgerald, second, and Mark Gibbs, third. Great racing in the Yokohama series once more. Now, what about the Park Royal pole position for the Tourers?
Since the Australian Touring Car Championship first hit the tracks back in March, it's been the all-singing and dancing Johnson & Johnson show. Queensland's favourite son has torn the opposition to shreds, setting fastest qualifying time 5 times in as many races. The Shell Sierras have won every round of the title, but today marks DJ's first shot at the Amaroo AMSCAR series. Yesterday's shootout for the Park Royal pole spot was critical for Johnson. As points leader in the Park Royal NEC Car Star Series, he held a 15-point break over Colin Bond, John Bowe, Jimmy Richards and Tony Longhurst. The awards are worth chasing. A holiday for 2 at the new Park Royal International Resort Hotel at Cairns, plus the fabulous NEC package, a portable telephone, the personal computer, and the VHS video camera. Total value in excess of $20,000. Colin Bond was the first to turn up the pressure on Johnson. His Caltech Sierra topped the first round qualifiers with the 51.07 lap to snatch a piece of the front row action.
No, we're quite happy actually, Mike. Just that we thought we'd have the bigger motor this weekend.
we're waiting on some piston rings from America, so we didn't get it in time. We're running the old motor still. Hoping to have the new motor, of course, next weekend in Queensland. But I think the race is going to be still a great race.
We've already seen the 10-lapper, the 20-lapper. How tough is this circuit on tyres over 20 when you are really racing?
Look, when you've really got a race around here, all the tyres feel fantastic for 10 laps, and it's the last 10 laps that you hang on. And I think today's going to be exactly the same.
Finding the right groove at Amaroo can be difficult. Wayne Park will certainly attest to this fact. The Phil Ward Lyndon Reithmuller team are still chasing development, though their Mercedes continue to have trouble at the bends. Biggest shock in early qualifying came from 7's resident rev head Neil Crompton. He had the audacity to outtime the boss Peter Brock in the number 7 Mobile BMW. He'll start from row 2 in the 20-lapper shortly. The second round of qualifying saw a determined Johnson strut his best. He improved his morning effort by 31/100ths of a second, though his own timers were convinced he'd cracked the 50-second barrier.
I suppose that's just the way the cookie crumbles at Amaroo. You know, the times do differ, I think, a little bit from, you know, where we take them down here on pit road, plus the official people get them in a slightly different pace, and there can be a difference between the two. And obviously, you know, things were very, very close yesterday in qualifying, and it sort of hasn't made that much difference, although it's dented the front row position, really, hasn't it?
The Freeport Sierra team of Tony Longhurst and Frank Gardner have done it tough so far this season. They know they trailed Johnson in development work, but yesterday it all came together. A blistering lap of 51.01 seconds to break Johnson's domination of pole positions, and some points at last in the NEC Park Royal Series.
Can't tell you how much work has been put into the car over the last 6 months to put a deal together, to put the car, to assemble the car, to put a truck together and start racing. And we've had a few problems this year, and we've been improving every meeting, even though the results may not have shown it. And I'm just so pleased to be up there now and to be competitive. I just hope that our car runs correctly the whole weekend. And the Touring Car Championship from now on, we should be able to start to race big.
In the awards department, the drivers seem to be doing quite nicely, thank you. But what about you at home? If you've ever hankered to own and race your own car, then check out this nifty Atiko Suzuki GTI production racer. David Clement has been achieving fantastic results in the baby car class in this InXS-sponsored machine. His association with the group goes back a number of years.
I've got to let you know, so slide over here and give me a moment. I've got to let you know, I've got to let you know.
Well, actually, Mike, it started about 10 or 11 years ago. I was doing some business with a car yard in Brookvale, and had a phone call from the boss down there, and he said he had 2 young fellas working for him that were forming a pop band, and they were looking for somewhere to rehearse. So they came down and they rehearsed there for about 3 years.
Next week on our telecast from Brisbane's Lakeside Raceway, our special InXS Kick 7 Viewers competition will be launched in conjunction with WEA Records. All you have to do is write in and answer 2 simple questions from the remaining touring car telecasts, and on grand final day at Oran Park, you could win this magnificent prize, so stay viewing.
The way I look at it, I mean, you might get somebody like Gary Walden, who won that TR7 in a competition. He went motor racing and he's been quite successful. So whoever wins the car can go motor racing. If they want it put back to a road car, I can do that for them. And possibly they might not want the car, so we could arrange to buy it back off them. So whoever wins it's got plenty of options open to them.
The devil inside, every single one of us, the devil inside.
So there you have it. InXS, Australia's hottest pop band, WEA Records, and Atiko Suzuki join 7 Motorsport with this fabulous viewers competition from next Sunday. Make sure you catch the Lakeside action, and after this break, we'll have more of these, if you please.
My name is Bernie Henley, and I'm on the front row of the grid. And that's Race Cam shooting the cameraman scurrying like hell to get off the circuit because they're about to send them away. There is a stalled car, though. Frank Kleinig is on pole position. There's a man with a hand up, car number 12. Robert Borton back in the field is going nowhere as they spear away. Kleinig and Bernie Henley off the front row.
Looks like Bernie has won the best out of that. Number 7, Greg McCombie, gets a good start and ranges right up behind Hanley as they head up the hill for the first time.
And Stephen David spearing through the pack to take up station in 3rd place.
Well, he's done just that. Stephen cuts, or David cuts, I should say. So Bernie finds himself back in 2nd spot and under a little bit of pressure. He's also carrying out Toledo Tools race cam as they make their way down the back straight to Power Plus corner. There's the rest of the field going by. So with the exception of one stalled car, which has now been removed from the circuit, we have the race well and truly underway and very competitive in the top 12. They exit Honda corner and make the run down towards the lake now, the right-hander, stop and go turn. Here they come down by the lake. Bernie Hanley sits in 2nd spot. Oh, there's one just wallop the wall. Oh, that rattle your dentures. And out of that turn and now across the start finishing line. Heading up the hill. Number 3, Stephen David, sits in behind Hanley. Hanley makes a run here for the inside. Can he do it? No, he can't. He's going to be caught one out here. And there's Bernie jousting with some open wheelers as he holds down 2nd. At Toledo Tools race cam, bringing you the pictures as they work the back straight now for the 2nd time.
David cuts the leader, Bernie Henley in 3rd, then Stephen David, Frank Kleinig. And I see Frank's son, Peter, is driving in this race as well, back in the pack a little at the moment in car 33. Well, no, he's not back in the pack. He's making a big move there on the outside.
Sure is. We pick up race cam. Might have then been an odd spot of rain there on the lens as they work the short straight to the right-hander. Has become very overcast here at Amaroo in the last 15-20 minutes.
Track's very wet there. They washed off the debris from that smash in the earlier race.
Frank Kleinig making a run up here on the outside of Bernie Hanley as they crest the top of Bitchapave yet again. Look for him on the inside as they swing through here down into the right-hander at Dunlop Loop.
Bernie pushing hard on David Cuts, the race leader.
They won't be making pit stops for wet weather tyres if it does happen to rain. These Bridgestones they're running are all-weather treaded patterns, suitable for wet or dry.
Coming down to the left-hander at Honda. Bernie has provided us with some great picks from race cam over the last couple of seasons here at Amaroo Park. He's under siege now on the inside, though, from Frank Kleinig. Kleinig pushing down on the inside. Bernie's able to defend as they exit that turn. Stephen David still leaves it, though.
Car 7, Greg McCombie, up into 4th place, driving a Concept, and that's Peter Kleinig just in behind him in 5th place. Kleinig pulling out to make a run at the back of the field there, at the back of that pack. As we follow car 3, Stephen David. In 4th, there's Bernie Henley having another go up the top of the hill.
Trying to pull back in on the inside, and I think he's one out on that one. So Bernie Hanley goes through now to take the lead. They work their way down the back straight. David Cuts runs in 2nd spot. Behind them, Frank Kleinig. Then Stephen David in 4th spot. And here's the challenge from Kleinig as he zips back into 2nd. Now he'll put some pressure on Bernie Hanley. He'll close on Bernie coming down into the lake corner.
Kleinig, the pole man for this race, just 4/100ths of a second quicker than Bernie Hanley in practice.
I think there was, what, 0.6 of a second over the first 10 cars. Pretty close. Bernie leads them out of the corner across the start finishing line. He'll be under a little bit of pressure as they head up the hill. Oh, pressure. Watch for the cars on the inside. There's Frank Kleinig. He's going through, and he's got one already in front of him. Oh, they've had a nice old joust. That's how quickly it all happens in Formula V racing. You're watching it live. Coming out of Dunlop Loop and working the back straight. Frank Kleinig is your race leader. David Cuts in 2nd spot. Bernie Hanley is in 3rd. They're jumping over the curbs, coming downhill to the left-hander at Honda.
160 horsepower collectively there. About 40 horsepower apiece from these 1200cc VW engines. And I think my wife could probably drive these cars around here. They change gears but twice. Third gear at that corner, the late corner, and third gear at the previous corner, Honda. For the rest of the trip, it's fourth gear all the way.
They come back onto the start-finishing straight, and Bernie finds himself with Stephen David, very anxious to move up the slot one more.
There goes David Cutts, making a move on Kleinig on the way up the hill. And Bernie right in behind them with Sevens race cam.
It is getting tight, isn't it? Never fail the V's to put on a good Formula V event for Coca-Cola here at Amaroo Park. And I think the fact that now we've been able, through our race cam engineers, to hang a unit on Bernie Hanley's Toledo Tools entry.
5.5 laps gone here, 2.5 remaining.
It was probably intended as a kindergarten formula, whereby guys can get into this type of racing at a fairly inexpensive level and then graduate to the bigger formula. But guys like Bernie and Frank Kleinig, they've been around for a long time and they just love it.
Look at this though. Number 2, David Cutts goes through to take over the lead from Kleinig. That puts Hanley still in third. He'll probably mount a challenge here as they head up the hill yet again.
2 laps to go.
Sitting in behind Frank Kleinig. There he goes.
Bernie makes the big move. He's going to be caught out wide, though.
Yep, if he's not careful. Oh, he may as well go for it, Bernie. And he's going to be very wide here. 2 comes back on the inside of him. He covers his ground, though. That's not too bad at all. He's at least been able to shake off Frank Kleinig.
I don't know about shake him off.
Well, shake off in Formula V terms. Now he's got a lap to work on David Cutts.
Kleinig anxious to recover the lost position there. Stephen David just in behind them, followed by Greg McCombie and Peter Kleinig. The top 5 have had this race pretty much to themselves from the outset. The top 6, rather.
Peter Kleinig could be learning quite a bit watching the 4 cars ahead of him.
Coming down to the lake corner. Along the short straight. Last lap board about to go out. So Bernie's got 1 lap to be able to come up with victory. And here he comes up the hill now. Can he pull the same move as he did last lap? No, he's not picking the leader up as fast as he was able to pick Kleinig up last time around. Oh, Kleinig's back again. That wasn't supposed to happen. Oh, Bernie's gone 1 out, 1 back, and number 3 down the inside is Stephen David. So Bernie's gone from a challenging 2nd to 4th. Great race cam pictures. Now, can he put some pressure on in the last half lap of this race? He'll pull to the outside coming down here. If he stays out there too long, and they'll all be all over him.
You'll get the iron cross if he can do it from here.
He's had 3 of those. Okay, makes a move down the outside. Maybe the inside. And Bernie about to be grabbed here by about 3 or 4. Has a look over the shoulder. Number 2, though. David Cutts comes out of the last corner. In fact, the checkered flag is waving, and it'll be Cutts who will get it as they go across the line. Cutts picks up the win. Kleinig will pick up 2nd spot, and number 3, Stephen David, will get 3rd, with, of course, Bernie Hanley picking up 4th place. That was quite a Formula V race from Amaroo Park, part of the Coca-Cola Bottlers Series, round number 2 this afternoon. Good drive that from David Cutts.
And good camera work from Bernie Hanley.
Yes, it's marvellous how he can drive the car and point the camera at the same time. Pram City, sponsors of our race winner David Cutts. Let's recap them for you on the Castrol scoreboard. David Cutts, race winner. Frank Kleinig takes 2nd spot. Stephen David is 3rd. Bernard Hanley is 4th. And Peter Kleinig runs in 5th.
Well, this is a red-letter day for David Cutts. Anybody that can beat Frank Kleinig and Bernie Hanley in one race deserves a big hand. Congratulations.
Thanks very much. It was not an easy job, but I come through in the end.
Your first win at an open meeting, I think.
Yeah, it's the first win I've had out here for ages.
Well, tell us the David Cutts story, because I know you had a big accident here in the previous round. You've been plugging away for a couple of seasons now, but finally it's all coming together.
Yeah, well, things have come together right on the right day, and it's all worked out for the good.
Well, congratulations from us. Congratulations from Frank Ferranda at Coca-Cola.
On behalf of Coca-Cola, congratulations on winning the Formula V Series round 2.
Thanks very much, Frank. Can I just thank Coca-Cola for sponsoring the series, and Pram City, Dynamic Flow, and my crew, which are my parents. and my brother.
Well done. David Cutts, winner of today's round of the Coca-Cola Formula V Series here at Amaroo.
And welcome back to Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway. We're only about 15 seconds off the start of Heat 2 of the AMSCAR Series, over 20 laps this afternoon. Pole sitter is Tony Longhurst. Lights are red, about to turn to green. And sharing the front row with him, of course, Dickie Johnson. The green comes on, and Johnson just ignites the line as he takes off. But here comes Longhurst up on the inside. Great start from Neil Crompton. Now heading to the top of the hill. Can Longhurst hold him out? Down on the inside, Johnson tries to move across the racetrack, but it's no baloney Tony who goes through to take over the lead. Catches Dick Johnson and keeps him out wide. Crompton is back in third spot. Brock is fourth. Colin Bond missing the start completely as they work the back straight. And Brock down on the rough as he tries to find a way past Neil Crompton.
Bad start by Colin Bond, but a brilliant start by Tony Longhurst. Under severe pressure now, though, from Dick Johnson, who wants to get to the front. He wants to lead this race. That's the place he's used to being so far this season.
Well, we've seen Dick Johnson lead every race in the Australian Touring Car Championship, put out of one at Winston. But at the moment, we're seeing Tony Longhurst of Queensland leading fellow Queenslander Dick Johnson across the strike. One down, 19 to go.
Colin Bond is back in sixth place behind Brian Callaghan in the Commodore. And Callaghan making things interesting for Peter Brock.
Brake lock up there from Tony Longhurst, but he catches it back again, trying to make sure he doesn't get too wide here and allow Johnson through on the inside as they exit Dunlop Corner. Keep it across to the right and cover his tracks rather well, but Johnson, I think, almost had him sit up, but Tony is going to give him a run for the flag. Downhill this time. Dick Johnson sits right on the tail of the Freeport Motorsport Sierra of Tony Longhurst. I think this is the sight a lot of touring car fans have been looking for all season, to see Dick with some real competition at the head of the pack.
Brock has got by Crompton, and in fact Colin Bond also has rounded Crompton up and moved up to fourth spot. Neil relegated to fifth. Brian Callaghan just in behind him.
Across the line now. Can Johnson stretch it as they head up the hill again? Sits in behind the Freeport Sierra, now works right to the back bumper. We're carrying the race cam out of the Shell Sierra as they head down to the right-hander at Dunlop. This time Tony's gone a bit wide. Johnson tries to close it up on the inside, sits right in behind. Can he work to the outside as they come through Power Plus turn?
Can they keep it up for 20 laps?
Well, the tyres will go away probably after about 10, but no one's going to tell Tony to back it off. Leaves a bit of a gap there on the inside. But don't forget, Tony Longhurst has done a lot of racing here in the past at Amaroo. Can Johnson nabble him under brakes?
Brock in third place as they come down to Lake Corner, under siege from Colin Bond.
Johnson just poking the nose through that time. They are running bumper to bumper across the strike and up the hill yet again. Longhurst looking pretty good, Peter Mackay.
Sure is, and he's really making Dick work hard. Those shots from race cam a little earlier, Dick was really twisting the wheel hard. Tony's had a bit of bad luck this season, Mike, with the Touring Car Championship. He started well in second, the second down at Calder, but since then it's all turned bad. But this weekend he was very confident. Frank Gardner and the team have given him a new engine management system, and so far so good.
Colin Bond has got by Peter Brock and is into third place, so after bluing the start, Bond making a big comeback here.
The Lake Corner yet again, Tony Longhurst for Freeport Motorsport. The White Sierra bounds out of that turn up the short chute now to the right-hander, brings them back onto the start, finishing straight.
He's probably stretched that lead just marginally, Mike.
He has, actually. To the top of the hill again. And yesterday, the Frank Gardner and the crew were delighted with their car. Dick felt that he'd actually gone a bit quicker in practice than the timekeepers had given him credit for. He thought he timed in at a 50.90. I think they've got the turbo tweaked up in the Longhurst machine.
Well, I'll tell you what, they had it tweaked up in the opening heat too, because Dick Johnson broke the lap record in the opening heat here this afternoon with a 51.51 seconds. He's the new touring car lap record holder here at Amaroo Park.
And we believe some problems for Dick Johnson as Colin Bond starts to close up right behind him.
Yes, we've got word that Dick might be having some oil pressure problems with the Sierra, which would account for the fact that he's dropped off Tony's pace and Colin Bonder's moving up on him.
Well, you think it hasn't inspired Colin Bond? He's come on like gangbusters. Here he comes down the inside.
Johnson waved him through.
Yep. So that now moves Colin Bond to second. Dick drops back to third. You have a couple of snarling BMWs at his tailpipe shortly.
So Bond going through. Johnson going to be very annoyed the way things are panning out, having won the opening heat here today in lap record time, and was determined to maintain his winning record for the season here. But Longhurst beat him to the punch off the grid, and as you saw, they went hammer and tong for those opening 4 or 5 laps until this problem, oil pressure problem, has arisen with Johnson's car, forcing him to back off, and he's falling back now into the clutches of Peter Brock in the 05 Mobile BMW.
Brocky will think he's got another 200 horsepower.
Yes.
Suddenly the BMW is looking good to pass the Sierra. It certainly hasn't happened too often this year.
Yes, you reckon this is great. Peter Brock, 05, the Mobile BMW. Comes in behind Dick Johnson as they go through Power Plus turn and downhill to the left-hander at Honda corner.
It's moments like these that drivers wish they had car-to-car communication, because I'm sure Brocky would like to make a few inquiries of the Sierra driver.
Here he comes down the inside, this time under brakes. And Peter Brock in car number 05. Dickie Johnson, that's something we haven't seen. Obviously has a problem, an oil pressure problem, we believe. Is that right, Dick?
Yeah, mate, I've got a few problems because I think something's gone wrong in the sump of the windy destroyer. Something has fallen apart, and that's why you see those lights on.
Yeah.
And they come on when there's only 40-pound oil pressure, and we run substantially more than that, I can assure you.
Yeah.
So I'd rather just settle for about 4th place and get 3rd on the day and just get a few points for the NEC Park Royal Prize.
Good thinking, my boy. Tell me this, when did the problem first surface? When did you notice it?
Oh, in about lap 2. Actually, the lights had a bit of a flicker in the earlier race, but I didn't sort of take that much notice of it. And you know, it's just the fact that mate, these engines are too expensive to lose.
Yes, I was going to say, that was a hell of a race you were having up there with Tony Longhurst. That looked great.
Well, the engine, I can feel, is starting to vibrate. You probably notice your camera might be having a bit of a blurred vision. So you better tell everyone that they better not go and see the optometrist tomorrow because their glasses are just fine.
Well, they probably have less problem than you had with the Chinese restaurant you told me last night.
Oh, wait, I did.
Do you want to explain that? I think the viewers would get a giggle.
Yeah, well, actually, I suppose it's what one thinks the difference is between light and hard. Well, I seem to be able to go to sleep with the light on.
You were telling us about your problem with an ordering problem about some food.
We went to this Chinese restaurant and the boys ordered some 4X. And they said, sure. And they came back and they gave us 4 eggs. It was a very humorous night. Very good food, but a humorous night.
Okay, mate, we'll let you get back and finish the race. Thanks for the comic relief.
Thanks, Bill.
Dickie Johnson, of course, one of those rare individuals who's still trying to pick up 4th place, some NEC Park Royal points, and cracking some gags at the same time. There's Tony Longhurst. He won't be bothered at all with Dick and his problems. He looks like coming up with his first win for the Frank Gardner Freeport team. And Tony, of course, 30 years of age, lives on the Gold Coast, driving the Freeport Sierra. 4th in the 86-87 Australian Touring Car Championship, winner of the 85 Castrol 500, winner of the 86 AMSCAR Series, and currently 6th in the Australian Touring Car Championship. One of our Nissan Super Profile stats this afternoon, and we look forward to some great racing from Tony Longhurst and Dick Johnson on their home track next weekend at Lakeside Raceway in Brisbane. It's
going to be great next round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Longhurst continues to lead this race from Colin Bond. The gap first to second is 2.89 seconds, so it's not big. And Longhurst wants to watch out because this is Bondi's favourite circuit as well. And it wouldn't surprise as the remaining laps unfold to see Bond mount a big challenge on Longhurst.
Coming across the line, there are 11 laps completed, 9 still remain. And we'll be able to show you the gap from the race leader. Of course, Tony Longhurst to Colin Bond. There's Longhurst going through. And here is Bondi just closing all the time. This is what he did in the opening round. We had that tremendous scrap.
Colin Bond is the series leader. Dick Johnson, of course, didn't contest the opening round of the AMSCAR series here at Amaroo Park. And Jim Richards, who did contest it for the mobile team, not driving today. Brock electing to drive today, along with Neil Crompton. Where are the Commodores gone?
I don't know, but Amaroo is certainly not the place that suits them over 20 laps against these lightweight and very powerful Sierras. We mentioned next weekend, 7 Motorsport, the next round of the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship. Not only will Dick Johnson and Tony Longhurst be on home terrain, but it'll be the return of Glenn Seaton, the new Nissan GTSR. There's Peter Brock, he'll be there along with Jimmy Richards.
Just looking back through the field, and Brian Callahan is the leading Commodore back in 6th position, but a long way back.
After Lakeside, of course, the next round of the touring car title is the following weekend, the last weekend in June at Sandown in Melbourne. The Nissans will be providing 2 cars there, one for Glenn Seaton and one, of course, for George Fury. The penultimate round of the championship will, of course, be here at Amaroo Park next month, and the grand final again at Sydney's Oran Park in July. And what a meeting that promises to be, in a big season for Oran Park. Not only that, but as Gary mentioned earlier, the 9th round of the World Superbike Championship, the Marlborough Series, there on the 25th of September. So
in the last
motorsport to come your way.
In the last 2 laps here, Tony Longhurst has doubled his lead over Colin Bond. It's gone out from 2.5 seconds to 5 seconds.
The laps winding down for the second heat today of round 2.
6 laps remaining.
Here comes Dick Johnson back into the scene again. Our information is that he wants to finish in front of Peter Brock, because keeping in mind, Dick's been adding up the points available in the NEC Car Star Series that runs on, of course, our 7 Motorsports, and he's trying to make sure that he has this series locked up with a couple of races to go, and here he comes again with Peter Brock. So don't tell me these boys can't count points in the middle of a race.
He's got to do that and save a $50,000 engine at the same time.
That's hard, isn't it? Well, along with that series with awards and the holiday at the Cairns Park Royal, that amounts to over $20,000, so it's not a bad award.
Mark, you mentioned Nissan a little earlier, and that Glenn Seaton would make his first Shell Series race of this year at Lakeside next weekend. News through from Winston was that Glenn Seaton took the car down there last week and recorded in race trim times a little quicker than those recorded by John Bowe, who won the championship race there a few weeks ago. So it does suggest that the Nissan's getting close to the pace.
Well, I've seen today, even though Dick had problems in the second lap, Tony Longhurst gave him a hell of a fight and was still leading him at that time. So it augurs well for a great race at Lakeside next weekend, and of course at Sandown. There's Lyndon Reithmuller, a lap put on him, car number 35, running a 2-car Mercedes 190 team. Phil Ward, also the other driver.
Yeah, these cars in for a little performance hike mid-year too. A little bit better engine that might put them on terms with the BMW. Of course, Benz and BMW, big competitors on and off the track.
Sure are.
I was going to say they need a big performance hike, don't they, really?
Well, they're quite a heavy little jigger, and they just need more horsepower, and they'll get it via a slightly bigger engine. This car and the car driven by Phil Ward, owned by Lyndon Reithmuller and brought to Australia with the James Hardie in 1986 by Bob Jane.
That's right. They're all painted in black. quite resplendent turned out today. 35, Lyndon Reithmuller, and of course Phil Ward. BP co-sponsored, and they're doing very nicely. Well, we're missing one commentator today, as you're obviously aware. That's because our own NC is out on the racetrack, and here he is, car number 7.
Finished in 5th place in the opening heat and is holding down 5th place on the track here with 4 laps to go. Neil Crompton, only 12 months or so ago that he made his touring car debut, and has really made a great fist of it in the period since then. Finished 3rd in the first heat of the AMSCAR series, round 1 here, and as you can see, 11th in the WTCC race at Calder last year, 4th in the 87 Castrol 500. So with limited experience, he's really made the most of his opportunities, and to be out there holding his own against the caliber of the Brocs, etc., is doing a fine job.
No mention in that Nissan stat of him being a former Ballarat Sea Scout.
2 laps to go. Heads up to the top of the hill and down into Dunlop Loop. It's quite strange, actually. He was scheduled to drive in the James XYZ at Bathurst last year, and was to have shared a car, the second car of Peter Brock's, but of course commentary duties with us at 7 prevented him, and there was some big hoo-ha about drivers, inexperienced drivers, Cams believed, shouldn't hold licences going into the race because it was a World Touring Car event. And had he started in that race and done the one stint, he would have been the co-winner of Bathurst with Peter Brock. In fact, he's still dark on. Anyway, Tony Longhurst, let's not take anything away from Tony and Frank Gardner, who of course campaigned the JPS BMWs for a number of seasons, along with Jimmy Richards. They're back with a brand new team for the bicentennial year, and Tony is not too far away from coming up with his first win in the Sierra, coming up behind Wayne Park at the moment. And of course another of the Mercedes 190s heading out of Honda Corner down to the right-hander at the lake, goes past Wayne Park there on the inside, coming up behind a couple of slower cars who are skating all over the place, including Phil Ward, who's there too in the second of those cars, coming out of the turn up to take the last lap board. So the split at this moment, still Tony Longhurst well clear, and opening that gap all the time over Colin Bond, who's dropped off the pace a bit. And let me tell you, Dick Johnson is right behind Colin Bond at the same time. In fact, Johnson coming good with a vengeance in the closing stages, as you can see via our Shell 7 Sport race cam. They're on their last lap, and Dick might just have enough to sneak past Bond, give him a few more points in the NEC series as they come down the back straight. To Honda Corner at the moment, though. The enforcer, they used to call him in the JPS BMW. No nonsense, no baloney, Tony. Here's Johnson still closing, still on the last lap, about a quarter of a lap still remaining. And Colley's got the wobbles.
I think Cole's tyres have gone to Gowings.
Yes, they have, and he's trying to desperately hold off Johnson. The last corner, meanwhile, is coming up for Tony Longhurst, and he will take his first victory in the Freeport Motorsport Sierra. Crowd going wild here as Johnson now slips beneath Colin Bond in the last corner to sprint to the flag. He picks up second, Bond takes third. An exciting finish to the AMSCAR series today, round 2 at Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway. I suppose the experts will say Dick Johnson's reign at the top has ended. Well, his winning streak has certainly ended thanks to this man. That's Tony Longhurst, who drove superbly in the Freeport Motorsport Ford Sierra, superbly prepared by Frank Gardner. Dick Johnson will get second, Colin Bond will get third, so it's a Sierra 1, 2, 3 as they come down on their cool-off lap. And the spectators giving Tony Longhurst a fantastic reception here as he comes around the bottom corner and heads back in the direction of the pits. Let's recap them for you on the Castrol scoreboard. Tony Longhurst is your race winner. Second goes to Dick Johnson. Third to Colin Bond. And we'll talk to the winner in just a moment.
Dick Johnson's hat just flying past. Let's try and establish a bit of order here. Let's talk to second and third on the day. First of all, come in Colin Bond. You let Dick get by you there on that last lap. What happened?
I was having plenty of trouble with the gear change, actually, and every time I got the bottom corner, I couldn't get second gear. And that was it, wasn't it? You know, Dick sort of slicked through before I could chance to get one.
Well, in the 2 heats today, you've had a second and a third. You finished third overall on the day, but in the overall point series for the James Hardie Building Products AMSCAR series, you're so far in front, I don't know if they can catch you.
I hope not.
Well, I got a big 67 points written up against your name here and nobody else within daylight.
Well, let's put it this way, you know, next time we come to, we hope we'll have a little bit more horsepower because the motor we've been trying to get going has been delayed, but we'll be happy, I think, next time we turn up here.
You keep promising a big engine and we haven't seen it yet.
I know. It's been on the dyno. It gets good figures on the dyno. Just doesn't want to go on the race car.
Will we see it at Lakeside?
That's what we're aiming for, yeah.
Let's hope so. Congratulations on a good job today. Tony Longhurst talking about good job today. Well, you know, you set the time in qualifying. First heat, what happened this morning?
Made a mistake with compounds, and we just picked a tyre that was too hard. And that's it, there's no other excuses.
Well, you've been promising us a big win here, and you produced the goods finally in that second heat this afternoon.
Yeah, it was, I had a good start, and Dick was right on my tail. I was being a bit cheeky. I held him up for a couple of laps, and I was hoping that the tyres he was running may have gone off. But then he apparently had a problem with his engine. But at least we've closed the gap on him, and I'm really looking forward to Lakeside. I like the track very much up there, and I've got a feeling we might be able to race him next weekend.
All right, we're all looking forward to that. Congratulations on a great win that second heat. Tony Longhurst. We're going to talk to Dick Johnson, but we're going to take a break here for just a moment because for our 7 Network viewers, we just want to remind you what we've got coming up. Of course, Lakeside, as we mentioned, next week, but a lot of other things on our Motorsport Diary.
Next weekend, we're off to the Expo City of Brisbane for the next bout in the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship Showdown. Lakeside is the location, and if history tells us anything, this race warrants waiting by the Teve. The twisty, bumpy circuit in the Sunshine State provides just the location for a dust-up between the touring car heavies. Ford runners Johnson and Longhurst both test their cars at Lakeside. The BMWs are suited to the layout, and Glenn Seaton makes a welcome return to the championship trail in the all-new and promising Turbo Skyline. We'll also have a round of the brilliant Formula Ford Driver to Europe Series and the ongoing battle in the Yokohama Production Car Championship. All that plus our regular roundup of motorsport next weekend from...
Well, Dick Johnson, the man with the 4 eggs.
Yeah, 4 eggs, all right. But it was, you know, a different day for us. Thankfully, we did come here and found out that we had a problem in the car because we were probably going to use that engine at Lakeside. So now we'll probably have to put something different in and hopefully finish.
Now, you had a problem there in that second heat. Is it a fact, did Tony make you race so hard you busted your boiler or what?
I don't know about that. These poor little engines, they cop a hell of a rev, and you know, that one's done a fair bit of work, but all in all, they should go a lot longer than that. But it's just found another, I suppose, weak link in a chain, which we've been doing over the past 12 months, and something else we'll rectify.
That second heat, just decided in the James Hardie Series, is the first race that the Shell cars have contested this year that they haven't won.
Yeah, well, that's to be expected because when you're on top, there's only one way of going, isn't there? And that's down. And I'm glad it went to another Ford.
What about Lakeside? I know you're looking forward to that. You always do because, well, you're still called Lakeside home.
Well, it's not really anymore because the fact we spend more time out of Queensland than we do in it now, but certainly I'm looking forward to Lakeside. It's a fantastic circuit and it always produces a very good race, and I can assure you that it'll be very, very good television viewing.
Let's call on Bernd Gruber from James Hardie Building Products. He's going to make the presentation to Dick Johnson, today's overall winner in the second round of the series.
Well done for today's win. Thanks very much. On behalf of James Hardie Building Products and Farmer Products, congratulations.
Thank you. Well, thanks very much indeed to James Hardie for putting on, or the Building Products mob, for putting on the series this year. Unfortunately, we didn't run the earlier rounds because we were obviously looking towards the Touring Car Championship, and we'll be back again at the next meeting.
Congratulations to Dick Johnson, today's overall winner, and of course more motorsport coming up on the 7 Network next weekend from Lakeside. See you there.